Hello everyone. In this video, I'll basically be going over phase 5 of me fixing the Multiverse Saga. And please watch phase 4 if you haven't already, and let's begin. The first movie I'd have for this phase would still be Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania with Kang as the main villain. And this movie would relatively stay the same, but if there was anything I would change, I'd have Kang be perceived as a more ominous threat, and also I'd have Scott Lang Ant-Man die in this film from trying to hold back Kang from entering into the real world, just so it could actually feel like there are consequences in these movies. Also, I wouldn't have Kang be subdued by giant ants of all things. I'd have it be much more of a more quantum effect, but it wouldn't be by ants, that's for sure. So this movie would essentially be a setup for Kang being a more prominent villain in the saga. But he won't be the main villain, as I'm saving that for Doctor Doom. The next project in this phase will be Miss Marvel, which would relatively stay the same. And after Miss Marvel would be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And this movie would stay the same, and this was actually one of my favorite movies from the Multiverse Saga. Especially the High Evolutionary, who I thought was a pretty good villain and was a breath of fresh air from all the sympathetic villains that we've been getting before. Now this is where I would change things up a bit, as I'd have the next movie be the fourth Spider-Man movie. And since we don't have the title yet, I'll just be calling it Spider-Man Responsibility. And this movie will essentially be a street-level movie with Spider-Man finally going up against Scorpion as well as Kingpin. And it would also feature Daredevil as someone who would help Spidey take down both of those villains. This movie would also feature Black Cat, played by Sydney Sweeney, as well as Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy. And since Peter already knows who Norman Osborn is, I wouldn't have him know Harry's last name at first, and I'd have Black Cat serve as a potential love interest for Spider-Man. And so the movie would end with Spider-Man and Daredevil managing to defeat both Kingpin and Scorpion with the help of Black Cat. And I'd have the post-credit scene be a setup to the Sinister Six, as well as a tease into the MCU version of Norman Osborn. Now, the next project I have planned will be Heroes for Hire, which will essentially be a buddy show starring Luke Cage and Iron Fist as they take up jobs as well as missions to stop certain supervillains. So this show would basically be a way to integrate both Luke Cage and Iron Fist into the MCU without having to get them each one of their own shows. Also, I just think it's criminal how we haven't really had a buddy film or show about Luke Cage and Iron Fist, as they're pretty much best friends in the comics. As for who will play them, to be honest, you can bring back the original Netflix actors, as Marvel brought back Charlie Cox, so I see no reason why they can't bring back both the actors for Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Now, the next project of this phase will be titled The Mighty Thor. And this will be another 45-minute special one-shot where we would see how Jane would get her powers, and I'd have this one-shot be set a little before Thor 4, so we wouldn't have to spend that much time on Jane in that movie, since we already know her backstory and how she got her powers in this special presentation. Now, the movie I have planned next will be Thor, the God Butcher. And if you couldn't tell, this would be a much, much darker version of what we originally got in Love and Thunder. And fun fact, actually, I am of the opinion that Thor: Love and Thunder is not only the worst movie of the Multiverse Saga, but the worst movie of the MCU in general. Like, seriously, I would rather watch Thor: The Dark World 10 times than have to rewatch Thor: Love and Thunder, like, twice. And one of my main complaints about Love and Thunder was how they turned Thor into this stupid, incompetent idiot who can't even take any situation seriously. Sorry, kids. I know you got kidnapped by a maniac who swore to kill every god, but it could be worse, right? Huh? What? They're right behind me, aren't they? With that being said, I'd have this movie be more faithful to Jason Aaron's run, where this movie would basically be a detective flick, which Thor is trying to figure out who is this new person who is slaying all the gods. With the addition of Jane Foster as Thor, and since we already know her origin, we can spend more time on Gore and his conquest, in which we would see more scenes of him actually murdering and slaying different gods. And speaking of Gore, I'd have his sword actually be a Necro sword, which is supposed to be a symbiote, but due to Sony not wanting to play nice, they couldn't call it the Necro Sword nor a symbiote in the movie. So I'd have it be referred to as a symbiote just for connectiveness. Also, I'd have Beta Ray Bill finally make his appearance in this film, as I feel like his appearance in the MCU is long overdue, and I'm not too sure how he could fit into the movie, but I just would rather have him in the movie. And so, with the help of Beta Ray Bill as well as Jane Foster, Thor would combine all of their efforts in order to stop Gore, in which they would, but not without sacrifice, in which Jane would give her life in order to stop Gore, which would ultimately lead into the heroes winning in the end, as well as Thor adopting Gore's daughter, which I actually thought was one of the few things that was decent in the original Love and Thunder movie. The next Marvel project I have planned will be Marvel's What If, which would, it wouldn't stay the same, as there are some changes I would make to a couple of episodes. Also, I won't have the final episode be a crossover, since I think we already had enough of those, and I'd rather have each episode be episodic in forms of different what ifs. And so the first what if would still be about Captain Carter, as well as the second what if being about T'Challa. But if there were one thing that I would change about those episodes, I'd make both of those characters seem less like Mary/Gary Sue's, especially the T'Challa episode, in which the part where he managed to convince Thanos of all people just kind of made me facepalm a bit. Now, the third episode is where I would change things, and I'd have it be, what if Thanos arrived on Earth during the events of Avengers 2012? So, right after Loki has been defeated, Thanos decides that he'll just go to Earth and take the Infinity Stones himself, which you could imagine how poorly that would go for the Avengers. As for the fourth episode, it wouldn't really change, as well as the fifth episode with the zombies. And for the sixth episode, I'd replace it with, what if Flash Thompson became Spider-Man, which was actually a real what if in the comics, and it's a pretty good read. I recommend that you guys check it out. And this what if is basically if Flash Thompson got bit by the spider instead of Peter Parker. As for the seventh episode, I will borrow this idea from a YouTuber named Mr. Part, in which it would feature Thor if he got banished during the events of World War II. So in this version, Thor would meet Captain America, and both of them would fight Hydra together in that time period. As for the eighth episode, it would still be what if Ultron won, besides the ending, because I don't plan on having the final episode being a crossover episode. In fact, I would have episode 9 be, what if the other half got dusted? And so by the other half, I'm talking about the original Avengers, and the new heroes like Spider-Man and Black Panther would be the ones who would remain alive by the end of Infinity War. Now, the next project of this phase will be Deadpool and Wolverine. And this movie would relatively stay the same. I see no reason to change anything. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 will feature the return of Daredevil as well as Punisher. And this season would basically be whatever Marvel has planned in the future. Now, the next movie I have plans will be Blade, which will basically be whatever Marvel has planned, featuring Marsha Ali as Blade, and I'd have this movie be rated R instead of PG-13, as well as having the villain be Dracula, who is actually a Marvel villain in the comics. Coming up after Blade will be The Marvels, which will basically be a better version of what we got in the original. And also, I wouldn't have Beast appear in the post-credit scene, as I have another plan for the X-Men later down the line. Now, the movie I have planned next will be Moon Knight, which would basically be the show, except it would be transformed into a movie. And I would actually have this movie be rated R as well, as I think Moon Knight deserves to have a more mature and grittier adaptation. And I'd still have him be played by Oscar Isaac, and I'd have Jake Lockley appear by the end of the movie as well. After Moon Knight will be Loki Season 2, and this show would relatively stay the same. After Loki will be Captain America Brave New World, which would also be the same as whatever Marvel has planned, with Red Hulk as one of the antagonists as well as the leader. After this movie will be The Fantastic Four, and I'd have this movie basically be also whatever Marvel has planned, with Doctor Doom serving as the main villain, as well as Galactus making his appearance. And I'm pretty sure Silver Surfer is supposed to be in this movie as well, so I'd also add him. And I would use this movie to not only establish the rivalry between Reed Richards and Doctor Doom, but also have Doctor Doom be set up as the main villain of this overarching saga. Also, Doctor Doom will not be played by Robert Downey Jr., as I'd rather have him be played by another actor. And my personal choice is Cillian Murphy, but if you guys have better suggestions, let me know. Now, after this movie will be another special presentation, which will be Werewolf by Night, which I actually found pretty enjoyable, and this would relatively stay the same, except I'd have it be rated R, or I guess rated M, since it's in a TV format, and this will just be another 45-minute one-shot. And now, the final movie of this phase will be Avengers, Kang Dynasty. And this won't be the endgame type of film that would be in the original Multiverse Saga. And if you were to compare it to the Infinity Saga, this movie would basically be the Age of Ultron of the Multiverse Saga. So basically, the setup villain to the ultimate big bad. And this movie would feature Kang, of course, as well as the Avengers. And I'd also have the Fantastic Four, if they do arrive to the main Marvel timeline by the end of their movie, be present in this film as well. As in the comics, Kang is actually the son of the descendants of Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Doom. So I'd want to implement that storyline in this movie. So, of course, I'd also feature Doctor Doom in this film as well. So the movie would end with Kang being defeated, but instead of having the Avengers kill him, I'd rather have Doctor Doom be the one to finish him off, and thus setting him off as the main villain of the Multiverse Saga, in which the Avengers and the Fantastic Four will have to defeat. And yeah, that's basically my rundown of my version of Phase 5, and let me know what you guys think, and comment below if you want Phase 6. And I'll see you guys later.